Gonna proc it now. Gonna proc it now by Jackson Aurelia. Jackson Aurelia. Gonna proc it now. Gonna proc it now. Proc it Jackson Aurelia. T-Force.
Welcome to the rework of the T-Force. Now we going hard cause we bumping at the beat source. It's a 3-course dinner of dudes bringing the news and stats, interviews and casts from the pro scene. So fresh and so clean, like you're leaning with Nami in the bot lane. Keep it hot like brand, practicing his dot game. Give it to you easy like you're Resi in a bot game. Imagine Draven at prime time. Now ulti like LeBlanc can copy that 4 times, but manlier. Knock it up like Malphite planning a family. You gotta be tuned in like Sona on the ad wall. Get on the chat call. Can a podcast really be all that? Of course. How do 4 guys make a Triforce?
Hey guys, welcome to the Trinity Force podcast. My name is Adam Potophobia Cogswell, and of course, I am the host of this show. I am back. I am here. I am ready to push us forward into podcasting land. Everybody, all aboard the train. Woo woo! Full steam ahead.
Welcome back, host.
Woo woo! And I'm only here for like one more day, and then I'm gone on Wednesday too. So
you're the worst.
Some host I am.
So you're the host and we're the parasites.
Well, that's why you guys are here. Yes. DeClaude. Yes, he's here.
Yes, I am here.
Punch is here.
Hey, everybody.
And that's it. That's all it's here this week. Because Chira Jaden had a family thing to go to, and Days is podcasting 2 times this week with Wednesday and Tuesday, so I told her to take a night off tonight. Well, actually, she asked, and I said take a night off, so.
You're so nice.
Did you hear my intro last week?
No, I haven't listened to the podcast yet.
It was very much your intro.
Why did you actually be like?
Your name?
Did you really?
Yeah.
Punch is true.
Like I made a mistake.
He did. Well, I mean, it's so automatic for us now. I mean, as soon as the podcast starts, we know what has to be said, and DeClaw just rolled right into it. And he's like, "Wait a second, I am not Adam Potophobia Cogswell. I'm somebody else entirely."
Did you say you're Robert DeClaude?
Iwanski? Yes, I did.
Yes, Iwanski. I would say Iwanski. I guess it doesn't matter. Iwanski.
Iwanski. That's the Americanized version of it. The Polish version is Iwanski.
Iwanski?
Ooh, I like that.
But I'm American, so
I like Iwanski. I'm gonna start calling you that.
That's pretty sexy.
All right, guys. So we are pushing straight forward. I don't have the document up, but I don't even think there's that many announcements. Big announcement. You know what? By the time you'll get this podcast on Wednesday. On Thursday, I want you guys to keep your eyes peeled to Twitter. I want you seriously. Like, this is huge. This isn't coming from us. Just keep your eyes peeled on Twitter. Announcement of an announcement, but you guys are gonna. This is gonna be. It's gonna blow you out of the water. I swear to God, it will.
This is the second announcement of the announcement.
I know, but I'm excited for it. Like, I'm super excited for it. I think everybody else here is excited.
We all are, yeah.
I'm very excited.
It'll be great.
Big announcement coming on Thursday, but we can't say anything about it because it's fun. Just keep your eyes peeled on Twitter. Keep your eyes peeled on a webpage. Keep your eyes peeled on Reddit. Keep your eyes peeled like a potato. I don't know. Just somehow keep them open. I don't know.
Glue your eyes to the monitor. Or your tablet or whatever.
Whatever you're doing, whether you're trolling your social media, trolling websites, playing games, just keep your eyes peeled.
So, as of right now, you'll hear me typing as I go to Patreon because I haven't looked it up yet. But we are at, like $1,227 per month as of right now.
Gadzooks!
We keep going up every week. That's like another $100 since
awesome.
last week. So, guys, thank you again for your patronage. If you are looking for a podcast, the Morgana podcast will be coming out. It's being recorded tomorrow, which is Tuesday the 16th, and it'll be out to you on Wednesday the 17th. So you just give it about a day. It'll get put together and pushed out that day. Like I said, if you're a patron, I will always say that these are the 2 dates that we expect it to be out by, but it should be out within that week. Like, you'll definitely get 2 in the month, and if you don't, you'll get 3 the next month. But we'll definitely make sure you guys can take care of it. So again, if you guys want to take care of the Champion Select podcast, go to patreon.com/T-Force Network, pledge $10 or more a month, and you'll get that specific podcast. Now, if you are not impressed, like we've had some people email us, like, we're not impressed by that Aurelio podcast you did. Well, humorously, that is probably the weakest one we're going to do because we have the number 1 Morgana player coming on to this next podcast. We have the number 1 new player coming on, and then we're going to do a straw poll for July's, and we're going to try to bring one of the top 10 players of whatever we choose into those next podcasts. So, like, you are really
that's really cool.
Out. Yeah,
you're hearing
the
from
Aurelia
the top.
guest was so I guess the Aurelia guest let down, and the best they could get was you. I mean, that's pretty.
Well,
pretty sad.
We actually had one of the top 10 Irelia players lined up for the podcast and ready to talk about it, but he fell through at the last minute, and we wanted to launch Patreon on the day that we did, so I just stepped in and tried to help the best I could. And I thought I did a decent job for what it was, and some people, they have their own opinions, and that's fine. Like we said, if you don't want to donate, I'm not asking you. I'm only asking you to help. I'm not asking you to do it.
Cool.
I don't know how
Well,
else to put it, but yeah.
I enjoyed
There's
the
going to
episode.
be
I was just giving you
for
credit.
a bunch of mid lane characters though. You're gonna have to figure out how to get Faker on because he's the number one for just about all of them.
I'm gonna have to figure out how to speak Korean too.
Oh, get a translator. Yeah,
That's gonna be really hard.
we have
Faker's
some translator
translator.
friends.
You could.
You could bring them on,
I can
too.
find them. So, guys, that's it for Patreon. Again, in a couple months, in August, I will release a teaser trailer, probably 30 minutes of each episode to make an hour. Well, an hour episode's 2 episodes, but make like a 2-hour episode, like 30 minutes of each, just so you guys get an idea of what you missed out on and what you could get if you went and donated. So, if you're on the fence, in a couple months, you'll get a podcast that's free to listen to. That'll give you an idea. Just because we want to keep luring people in, with the information we're giving them. Like, the money is irrelevant. It's really, we want to push the information out to you. The money just helps us so we can do more of those and get more people together. So, yeah. Other than that, no other notifications. Let's jump right into patch 5.11 because, as always, I am long-winded in my intros and these guys are not. That's why I should probably stop posting the podcast. So,
Well,
You're so good
actually,
at-
we did most of 5.11 already, so that's okay that you took a long time because we don't have too much left to cover, but we do
I
have
guess
some.
we'll just jump right into mailbag after that. But, yeah, I'm going to let you guys talk about it because I don't know where you left off.
We left off on Orianna. All right, we had just finished talking about Malphite and his brutal strikes, and we moved on to Orianna. So, Orianna, pretty much her change is only with her ultimate, and the cooldown upon outranging the ball was half a second. Now it's 0.75 seconds. So
So this is
it's
so they
a little
they talk. Sorry, I was
Yeah,
just kind
go
of
ahead.
mowed over you there, but they do a
It's
good job of
okay.
explaining this in the context where this only takes effect when the ball returns to Ori as a result of her outranging it. So there's a longer period of time before or where you can't. How do I word this? It's a longer period of time so that you don't accidentally ult on top of yourself when the ball comes back to you. So when Orianna outranges the ball, it's now 0.75 seconds after it returns to her before she can use her ult. So you should have more time to realize, hey, the ball's on top of my head, and that should be there should be less number of sombreros, as they call
it's
it.
not sombreros. It's
The
not
sombrero
really.
ult.
It's not really a nerf. I guess it's just more of a margin of error, and you can still command protect on yourself or step on it to make it come back to you.
Yeah,
There's
it's
no
not a
change
nerf
there.
at all.
So it basically gives it a longer. I won't call it global cooldown.
When it
It's global,
automatically-
it's global plus whatever. It adds a 0.75 second cooldown when it touches you,
Which is
coming back.
It's kind of a buff because then doesn't it make it stick out there a little bit further, a little bit longer, so you
Yeah.
can zone more with it. So
no, it
no,
won't
I
stay
think it
out
returns
longer.
at the same time. It's just that duration talks about when she can use her ult when the ball is after already returned. So when the ball returns, she
oh
can't
yeah,
use
when
ult for
ulting.
0.75
Period.
seconds.
Got it. Right.
Yeah, it's just so you don't screw up as much.
right. If you're mashing it, it's like no, hold on.
Yeah, and that's only if you outrange it. It's not if you eat it back to yourself and press R. It's literally only if you walk
Right.
away from the ball. So it's
It's nice to have.
Yeah.
Simple
Yeah, I
enough.
guess we'll keep moving on then. Rise is up next. If you guys were wondering where all the Rise nerfs are at, because he's big, they've already said it's coming into 5.12.
Yeah.
yeah.
Changes.
This-
It was just a bug fix.
The PPE was at the end of its cycle by the time they realized Rise needed some changes, so this is all they had.
Which is actually pretty hilarious, but I think the patches are pretty much ready within a couple weeks ahead of time. Before what is it? The cycle ends about a week before the patch releases, and they're probably already pushing the release at that point.
That sounds right. I'm not an expert on the cycle.
I want
We'll
to
have
say
ask him if
the cycle ends about within a week, and if it's not, if it keeps going, it's just little bug fixes, and they're nothing like big. Like I think
Yeah.
most of the big patch fixes start about 2 weeks out, and then they're just tweaking numbers at that point from when the patch releases. And you'll notice as soon as the patch hits, there's like a PBE cycle within 12 hours of the patch hitting. Like
Yeah.
that's how far ahead they're looking with these patches.
That's a great day when you get patch notes and then the next PBE patch notes.
It's pretty crazy because you know what's funny about League of Legends, and since I'm amused about it a little bit, is that if you look at like Nintendo's patch notes or Smash Brothers, they're like, we fixed some things, and then you look at League of
I know
Legends,
they're
and,
very.
yeah, and there's all these
detail.
there's all these patch notes that get taken care of with League of Legends, like little tweaks and little things. So it's very nice to be with a company who actually gives you notes and
That's a good point because not only do they give you the notes and exactly what they changed, they give you context behind it. Here's why we did it, which is awesome.
yeah, we just did it cause.
Well, like the Orianna thing, if you just read that, like I just read that, I'm like, okay, what does that mean? But like Punch pointed out, the context explains it all. It makes it pretty clear.
It saves them a lot of headache too by adding the context, because without it, people get pretty upset. People go off for no reason on the internet, especially forums. So if they read something without any context, they just freak out about it. But now the context is there, everyone can make fun of the person freaking out because they didn't read the context. Well, and they look like an idiot.
Let's talk about not reading the context, and let's talk about Sejuani, because last week, last patch 5.10, if you didn't read the context, you would have thought that the Sejuani nerfs would have gone through. And they didn't. They didn't go around to 5.11, just like the context of the patch that said. So they have reduced the magic damage that Flail the Northern Winds does. Bonus magic damage used to do 4, 5.57, 8.5, and 10% of the target's maximum health. It now does 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6%. So significantly decreased, meaning she does not get as much damage by building just pure life, which is good for a jungler.
Well, I mean, it was based off the target's maximum health, but
anybody building pure life.
I mean, she could build pure tank and do a significant amount of damage, and I mean, she was actually kind of falling off already before this change. I'm not even banning her anymore. I think people are kind of scared of her from now on. People have moved on to Gragas as the #1 jungler, in my opinion, from what I've seen.
Yeah, and Rek'Sai's made a big comeback,
which is kind of funny that Rek'Sai is making a comeback, considering that she got a life nerf in patch 5.10. Like, I really thought that was gonna. I didn't think it was gonna be the end of her, but I really thought it was going to be like the end of her in solo queue. But I guess people just stick with what they like to play and how they like to play it. Like, you still see Lee Sin, and he's not really that good in the meta. But if you're mechanically skilled and you're very good with the champion, you can play him very well. That's why a lot of people still play him. Right. Yeah.
Well, stop banning Sedge. I'm going to pick her anyway.
Oh, yeah, you can still make her work.
Yeah, she's still good.
Oh, yeah. Well, she's still good for her Q over walls, engaging. That ultimate's just amazing if you hit it. Permaslow, and then, she's just good. But she's bad, so don't play her.
I was having really fun. I was having fun playing against the Sedge last night at Singed, because every time she ulted, she would try to... I would make sure that I missed the ult. Somehow, I just magically would miss the ult every time. Like, I'd walk around, and I saw it coming. Just because you can tell where she wants to throw it for the most part, unless she comes flying over a wall. You know what I mean? And so I'd miss it, and then she'd try to dive in and knock everybody up, and I'd fling her back. She'd go flying over my head. And nobody else could engage at that point. It's hilarious when you could just, like, stop the total engage and let everybody have that, half second or whatever that they're stunned. So let's move on and talk about Shen.
I love with Singed. You just reminded me, done it a couple times, seen my buddies do it a couple times. It's just timing luck, I guess, when someone tries to flash over a wall, but you fling them, and it totally messes up the flash. The flash goes off, but then they're grabbed midair, and then they get tossed behind you.
I hate it.
I've seen that happen with Gnar. I've seen people get pulled out of the fog of war by Gnar ult into a wall. It's just hilarious.
Did you see the GIF?
Yeah, that look, dude. I saw a Hecarim, like, it wouldn't have been fog. It was fog of war for me because there was no ward there. But for him, he was still in it, so he got pulled. The Gnar just fog of war goes. Here comes this Hecarim out of nowhere and hits a wall. I'm like, holy shit!
Damn,
it's good stuff. A little tangent there. We'll move on to Shen. Speaking of immovable walls here,
Shen. The big change here, I don't think it's Key Strike or Shadow Dash, like those are those are very helpful. But now he has a magic resistance growth stat from 0 to 1.25.
Can you explain to me why he didn't have one before? Because I thought most melees, if not all of them, had a magic resistance growth stat.
Too powerful with shield, I would assume. It was kind of like Sejuani for a while didn't have a magic resist growth stat back in like season 2 or 3. A lot of those tanks, I don't know why they didn't.
They were too tanky.
I think they were just too tanky, and then they gave it to him and they made him really good. Like, Sejuani became really good with the rework, but she also gained a magic resist growth stat.
All right.
Yeah, he's getting a little more MR. He's buffs across the board here. More MR.
That magic resist growth stat actually puts him into contention as being a very, very good 5v5. Again, he puts him back in contention 5v5. Not like first pick ban like he was for a while, but definitely puts him back up there where if he's playing with a team that can utilize his ultimate and utilize the fact that he's a brick wall. Now, granted, Shen doesn't really have the best laning phase ever. He can be a bully in some matchups, but when you look at like the top 5 tops right now, which is Gnar, Maokai, Hecarim, Rumble, Renekton. Those like your top 5 tops right now. and Renekton leading the tail end of that, even though I think he's super strong. Shen doesn't really do good in those matchups because he gets bullied out by everybody. Now, Rumble maybe a little less now that he has a Magic Resist Grow stat, but probably not. But if you take those 5 matchups into consideration, Shen doesn't do great, but his ultimate can make up for the fact that he doesn't do great in the lane. You know what I mean? Like, because he just can't duel any of those people later into the game. Like, he can't split push as well as he used to be able to. But he has that ultimate where it can be game-changing at certain points because some of those champions would have to dive him to stop the ultimate, and then he can taunt and get his shield back. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's all those little outplays the guy can do. That's why I don't
Speaking of
that's
that
why I
dash,
think he's still good. Yeah, let me get to there. That's why I still think he's good, but I don't think he's like everyone's like, oh my god, Shen's amazing now because he doesn't have the dueling potential with those top 5 that are there. But
unless you build him a very specific way. But yeah, when you're playing in a ranked 5v5 scenario, you're probably not going to be building that duelist Shen damage build.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just pick a duelist.
Yeah,
why would you pick Shen and build him like one? We could pick something that's better.
The only way Shen can really duel anybody is between Key Strike, which his cooldown has been decreased from 9 seconds to 987, and that was his extra damage. That was his passive. That gave the extra bonus damage. Shadow Dash energy cost was 100 flat. It's now 195, 90, 85, 80. And remember that every champion you hit, you gain 20 energy back with Shadow Dash.
I really like that change.
Yeah.
I would run out of energy way too much with Shen, mostly because I use Q too much, and steal a bunch of kills with it.
Q and W.
But that's how you poke around. That's like the Pantheon Q. You know, that's just how you poke them down until you can find that sweet moment to go in and finish them off.
Right.
But Shen, I don't know. Shen, he can win trades because he's so tanky. He's got a little on-demand shield. He doesn't have to worry about mana, you know. So as long as you manage your energy right, and this just helps you manage it even better. So, or hold on to something to escape if you do go all in with everything else, you know.
Shen is like every other champion where you just have to outplay him in lane. Like if you're having a hard time going against a Shen, it's because you're not outplaying the Shen's abilities. Like you said, he doesn't take mana. He's like a Katarina or a Garen. But if you play around his key strike passive and his W, you can outduel him because you just need. It's kind of like a Riven. You wait for that shield to go down, then you can outduel him, and you wait for it. You reset the trades.
A big part of outplaying him too is dodging that taunt. Because
a
lot of the time, what he'll do is he'll go in with the taunt when the key strike is active, and then key strike or Q key strike, and then hit W to block your return damage. So,
and use the taunt. Minions.
Yep.
Have them selected so you can watch.
Waiting until W's down is important.
Yeah.
Watching the key strike stacks, like on Kennen, you can watch his stacks as well and know when he's going to do his all in or when he can get that extra damage in.
Right.
That's good knowledge to have.
That'll be the big thing we hear with Shen is I think he could see some play. He's kind of like he's one of those champions where who we start seeing recently in the LCS. I mean, Echo obviously. I'm trying to think of another champion that just came out of nowhere.
Vlad made a comeback.
Yeah. There's just champions that make a comeback out of nowhere, but like I'm probably thinking of like those one-off champions that go like a Darius.
There's been a lot of them just because of how the meta is. So
that's kind of how I feel.
Variable right now.
You won't first pick him. That's all I'm saying. So,
right.
Yeah.
You won't have to worry about losing him yet.
Well, let's move on to Shyvana, because Shyvana has some changes. They don't like that she's falling out of favor in the top lane, so they've changed her W burnout ability. It now does 25% of burnout's AoE damage per basic attack for the duration of the ability. And there was a bug fix where it fixed burnout at twice its bonus attack damage ratio while in dragon form.
So it's an extra 25% damage pretty much every time you smack, which is pretty awesome. Have you played it yet?
Say that again to Claude, because you went nutty for us in Skype, and your camera's frozen.
I did? Well, son of a gun. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. I'm clear. I'm back to being clear. Okay. Anyway, what I was saying was that she pretty much just does 25% more damage as long as she's smacking you while she's got her burnout going.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to figure out is it 25% of the damage, the total damage that's done over time, or is it 25% of each tick that you're doing?
Yeah, I'm curious about that. I was asking, did anybody try this yet?
I haven't played Shyvana yet, because I don't think she's good enough in the top lane between all the other, again, those 5 that I mentioned before. When it comes into mid and late game, she doesn't bring as much as those others do for team fights. I think she could be really good in solo queue, because she can be a pretty big bully and push and roam, but there's just nothing here that makes me go, oh my god, Shyvana's really good now.
I agree.
Yeah.
I had some success playing her into Renekton.
Yes.
But, I mean, like you said, Renekton's kind of at the tail end of the top of the totem pole. I don't really see Renekton that often.
He's
Even though
really
he is
good,
strong.
though. Like,
He
he's
is strong,
really
yeah.
strong. If you're not playing Renekton in solo queue and you're not, if you're a top laner and you need a champion that's going to carry you, Renekton or Rumble are the two you should be playing right now. Because everyone knows how to play against Hecarim and Gnar.
I have seen some Shyvana jungle over the weekend, but they built DPS and just got rocked later on because they weren't tanking enough to survive damage. So that was kind of a mistake, but people are trying it. And, I mean, she was doing damage. She got a couple kills early and was able to build or at least start building a Blade of the Ruin King off of it.
So if I read this correctly, if level 1 Shyvana does 20 damage and her burnout is active, she does 25% of 20. Is that how that works?
Is that the tick damage?
Shyvana, because, well, if you read League of Legends, not the wiki, but League of Legends game info, it says Shyvana deals 20 up to 80 magic damage per second to nearby enemies. So that's per second. It's 20 damage per second. So was every auto attack 25% of 20 or 25% of 80?
I would think so. If it was the total
wouldn't it
damage,
be-
that'd be ridiculous. 5 extra damage per auto probably sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I think. Protect.
Yeah, that's a really, I like this change, because part of burnout that a lot of people forget is that every basic attack you do extends the duration of burnout by 1 second to a maximum of 4 seconds. So every time you are extending the duration of burnout, you're doing quite a bit more damage.
That's a good change. I mean, it accentuates how she trades, right? I mean, she wants to trade when W is active, and when she's got an E proc on somebody.
Yeah, the E was the big thing. The reason that she came into such prominence was because E was doing trading with magic damage.
Yep.
All right, well, we can talk about Sivir, I suppose, as well. Big, long.
Nerf. A lot of context. But
Yeah, a lot of context. Yeah. R on the hunt. Initial movement speed duration has been decreased from 246 to 234. And Sivir gives too much to a team for being an AD carry. Like, she's got short enough attack range that she's not allowed to hyper carry with it, but she gives such a great team buff that you could build somebody around the way that she plays that allows the team to make up for any holes in their kit.
Well, in the meta with tanks and the Righteous Glory existing, this just makes it all that much better. So they had to realize, maybe we should dial this back a little bit since we have these other tools.
So in the context, they talk about how Righteous Glory has come along, and Righteous Glory plus Sivir kind of just makes for too much movement speed or too much, initiation and disengage for a particular team. And they also mentioned that Sivir's become a champion that you'll pick, and whoever else you're playing with becomes a hard engaged team. It doesn't matter who's on your team; you're a hard engaged team now, just because the ultimate is so powerful. Mm-hmm. And so that's what they're trying to do. And they compare her to Nidalee, how before Nidalee's rework, if you picked Nidalee, you were a poke comp. Because all you really needed was Nidalee to poke.
Right.
And she was so good at it, she could be the only one poking. And, hey, all right, wait for Nidalee to poke, and everyone else just kind of watch and wait.
Which is humorous, considering now that if you have Kog'Maw, you're a poke team. Same thing. All you gotta do is pick Kog'Maw, give him blue, and he can siege down a tower by himself. You don't need anybody else to do that for you.
New Jace. And old Jace.
I haven't seen new Jace yet. I know you guys talked about him last patch.
He was disabled for a while.
It was weird.
Yeah, I wouldn't play him as AD carry.
You did?
I did, yeah.
Since the patch?
It wasn't particularly impressive.
And we're seeing Varus mid pop up for poke
Yeah,
teams.
I've seen a lot of him. For the same reason as Kog'Maw.
Well, Chad is coming out here. Biznera, sorry, asked about Sivir, asking if this was an LCS nerf, because I never really saw her in solo queue, which is humorous, because I think between her, and I'm coming around the Draven now, because Horse Doctor won't leave me alone about him, but the more I remember him. Yeah, but like Draven Sivir, I think are like the two dominant solo queue ADCs right now. Like, if you really know how to play them.
Draven especially, that's a longer conversation.
Yeah.
I am a big fan of Sivir, but I think she has a lot of counter picks, so I don't necessarily like line picking her. Now, if you talk to Horse Doctor, like I don't think he thinks that there are less counter picks to Sivir than I do. Is the impression I got. We didn't get into a huge conversation about it, but just bouncing ideas off each other. That's the impression. So I guess it depends on how much Sivir you play and what matchups you're comfortable picking her into.
Right. Overall,
and how
this was
much spell shield.
a ranked 5/LCS, primarily LCS nerf, just because the teams were using her utility for more than what they intended it to give.
Yeah, this doesn't scare me off of playing Sivir at all. Doesn't hurt her laning phase.
Solo queue, yeah.
Like, her laning phase is still really strong, and her team fight is still really strong. I mean, you're still going to get that boost, that initial movement speed boost duration of 2 seconds. I guess that's the first rank.
Level
it's
6,
not very clear in the notes, but
it is, yeah.
Yeah, it's the max rank. That's 2 less seconds for your maximum movement speed duration. I don't think it's that bad.
Nah.
Not that big a deal.
Usually use it for the initiate anyway.
So
yeah.
I was going to wrap
on.
around unless you got more to talk about Sivir.
No, I was just going to say, you hear the scream, and then either you run away or you are committed to the fight. So adding or subtracting a little bit of duration at the end of it just means you have to use it. You got to time it better with your teammates. That's all. I don't see it really as a terrible nerf.
Yeah, she's your LCS AD carry if you want one. So you guys talked about Aatrox, Ashe, Brand, Caitlyn. What do we have? Echo, Hecarim, Jace, Katarina, Kha'Zix, LeBlanc, Malphite all last week. That's a big list. Plus Luden's Echo, correct?
Yes.
I wanted to wrap back around to some of those champions that are right here. Since Claude walked away, and now I can't ask a question. Have you seen Malphite recently, Punch?
I want to say have.
Still here.
Yeah, I definitely have. I haven't really noticed a big change in power with him, mostly because he was on my team. So I didn't really get a chance to play against him as additional armor to see how much more tanky he was. But I mean, he seemed to be doing fine.
Yeah.
Sadly, I can't add a lot more context to that though.
Every Malphite I've seen is actually able to put a point in the W early for the additional armor if they need it in lane. Otherwise, they're still doing the QE max. Like, if you just don't want to get bullied out of lane, you put some extra points in the W. It makes it the last hit harder under turret. But for the most part, I would say 95% of the time you're going to max either Q or E and not put a point in the W. But it really just does change Malphite jungle a little bit. Does it put him into contention to be like top tier, S tier jungler? Absolutely not. But I think he still has a place in solo queue jungle where players don't understand that pre-6 Malphite can't do anything. There's a lot, like if you are, I would say Diamond 5 or lower, there's a lot of players that don't understand how the jungle works. And they don't understand, like if you're playing against a Gangplank, for example, that you should be ganking and not farming. Because the Gangplank can't counter gank you because he has to farm to get to 6. Or he has to farm to get into mid-game where turrets are getting down and his opponents are winning, essentially, right? Like Gangplank doesn't affect the entire game until he hits that level 6. And there's a lot of other jungles like that, like Malphite and whatnot. He doesn't gank very well for it. So I think this is like a really good change for anybody who's Diamond 5 or lower for solo queue, because he can go take Malphite in the jungle, get 6 more quickly, farm to it, and then start impacting the game through his ultimates.
Makes perfect sense.
Or throw him in support, like we saw in the LCS this weekend.
Please, he's been support forever. It's not even that.
Bisnair is pointing out that the main reason you'd pick him is against AD teams, and I think that's pretty obvious with these changes. He was saying he almost got 800 armor, which just sounds completely ridiculous. But, I mean, 30% additional armor is pretty huge, so...
Yeah. That's why...
I guess it's believable.
You know what? Fuck it. We're going to talk about Taric right now, just because I honestly... Like, Days pointed this out, and I didn't look, and I should have, but Taric has been in the top win percentage of champions. He's at like 54% win rate or 53.4 or something like that. So Taric's like really good, and that's because another reason you see a lot of like Rivens and Varus's and crazy AD comps. In my opinion, if you're not picking Taric in solo queue into Thresh, Leona, or Alistar, like if you want a counter pick for that, pick Taric, level your W, run in there with a bunch of armor, and your AD carry becomes immovable.
I wouldn't say immovable. I had, 10 extra armor? Or 7 extra armor?
And you were immovable! And
I didn't die.
the dog.
So
I can't shut
that
her up.
nice. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen enough Taric to jump on the bandwagon right now. I mean, he does seem like a nice pick in theory against Kalista, who hops around all day, and then Taric just says, no, stop that.
Yeah.
And then, hey, she's a sitting duck for whatever the hell you want to do to her. Which is the hardest part against playing Kalista sometimes.
I don't know about with Karma's coming back in the support role because of her changes.
I don't ever see it. I haven't seen one Karma in the support.
since the patch?
Haven't seen one. I've played a number of games too. I haven't even seen one Karma.
Okay. Well, if people start playing her, don't pick Taric.
Well, that was the thing. Like the big thing, you're right with where you're going here is that if you're playing you're playing Taric or Thresh, Leona, like it's all in or nothing, or else you're gonna get poked down.
Right.
Especially with Taric because he's just got so much armor buff. You're gonna get poked down. But the thing with Taric is if you're what he does great is he gives 50 AD and 50 AP to the team when he presses R. Like he gives essentially a BF
last time we talked about this.
What's that?
You were poo-pooing that the last time.
I was poo-pooing it a little bit. I was poo-pooing it. I was like, that's not that big a deal. But when I usually go back. If I poo-poo something, I usually go back and I look at it. And then I decide if I really like it and I'll play it. Because in the moment, I'm like yelling about it. But like, I like him for solo queue because it's really easy for people to forget that Taric has that armor buff and forget that Taric is giving all these passive stats, including AP and AD, to the enemy team. And that he has a heal and a point-and-click stun. So for solo queue, I think he's fantastic because he counters all those really hard engaged comps just through the fact that he's getting so many passive stats that people aren't realizing they're getting, so that you can make it to the initial salvo and then continue to, through the fight.
I agree with you on the solo queue aspect because you don't think about the passive stats. You're just like, oh, he's stunned. He's a stun bot and he has a heal. You don't realize the AD carry is suddenly really hard to kill.
I think he's pretty good against hard engage bot lanes. I don't know about total team comps.
Well, not if it's like Orianna, Malphite, and Mumu or something. Absolutely. I mean,
yeah. But I mean, for engaged bot lanes, he's pretty good because really all he has to do is when the bottom lane engages, he just stuns the enemy AD carry.
Yeah.
Then that's pretty much it. Like, okay, friend AD carry, you can walk away safe now because you're fine.
Well, you stun them, press R, reduce their armor. You lose your armor for you lose like 20% of your armor for the duration of it, but your AD carry continues to get all of passive percentage of your armor. And if you're 6, there's a lot of things about Taric which I think is it's the reason he's a bad champ is because there's a lot of things that are forgotten. Like I said before, that's like, you forget that he gives 50 AP and AD with his R. It's easy to forget that he does a percentage of magic damage with his passive through the amount of armor that he has. It's easy to forget that he's shredding opponent's armor when he presses R. Like he's got a little bit of like passive pieces to his kit that makes him really good for solo queue.
When you talk about this more, I think wasn't there a mana cost change on his heal relatively recently? I'm looking this up now. Because I was going to bring up his mana cost woes.
It's really high. It's like 140 mana for his heal.
Yeah, 5.10. They reduced the cost. Mm-hmm. They reduced it by 40 points at max rank, which you're not leveling up heal first in lane unless it's going horribly wrong. But it's 60 points or 60 mana at rank 1 is the same, and then they lowered it by 10 after that up to. And
you're healing yourself. If you heal your AD carry, you get I think 50% of the health back to you. He's pretty good. I think he's a great solo queue support now.
His stun will outrange us. It'll truly, truly outrange us. So
yeah, because it's truly outrageous, of course.
Yeah, something like
outrange us.
Outrange us.
Because it's a range stun.
All right, well, let's circle back down onto the other champions. Have you been able to play Caitlyn since she's been re-enabled, or is she still disabled?
No, because she's still disabled. Those sons of bitches.
Actually, as of 11...
I think she was enabled.
Oh, as of 6/11, she should have been re-enabled.
It says she's still disabled in the client.
Well, then
she was re-enabled on Thursday when I was playing ranked 5s and couldn't play AD carry. And then on Friday when I was playing solo queue, I couldn't pick her again.
I remember seeing Jez's tweet that he can't wait to get home and just play nothing but Caitlyn for game after game because he was excited that she was re-enabled. But she's disabled again.
I don't...
Or you guys.
Why do they got to do this? Well, oh well.
Why they got to pick on Punch?
That's your emotions.
I know. I just had to play Draven, I guess.
Somebody TLDR for me. What was Chira's take on the Kha'Zix change?
Oh, geez.
Did he hate it?
It was a long discussion because it was one of our single line changes, long discussions that we go into.
And I probably sat there the entire time like, "Shut up, Chira." No.
I mean, he really liked the change, but he's not jumping on the board of like a. It's not a huge power spike for Kha'Zix. Just what I got from that. Whereas, yes, it's nice to have. Kha'Zix isn't going to jump to the forefront of the meta with this.
Essentially, he can isolate targets more quickly or easier. Is that what it is?
It's nice, but he's not usually evolving that. So.
Oh, yeah, that too. You have to make the choice between it.
What would you lose for it? maybe
right, you're losing R if you're going to evolve Q.
That's what he was saying.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that pretty much covers everything this patch. We don't talk about Twisted Tree Line, guys. If you want Twisted Tree Line discussion, you're going to have to go to 4 Wards because they're going to do an episode about that in probably a month or so. I know they're practicing and getting ready for it, but we're not going to talk about Twisted Tree Line quite yet.
Off-map podcast?
Off-map podcast? Yeah, that's a podcast that could happen. Actually, I think there is something here for Twisted Tree Line podcast. The problem is there a big enough crowd for it?
Well, regardless.
Probably. Just like there was a big enough crowd for Dominate Dominion for a while, so
right.
Jump on the bandwagon while it's there.
Are we going to hit a listener questions?
This is where I kind of need that like intro or interim music. I don't know what the hell it's called. You know what I mean?
Intermission?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I need the intermission music. Like, now we're going to intermission, and then you play I'm gonna make.
Let's go to the lobby. Let's go to the lobby.
No, the one I used in one of the podcasts was the Monty Python intermission music from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. That one. Just assume that's your intermission, guys. Yeah, I think we're gonna jump into a couple listener questions now. So hopefully you guys are still listening and still enjoying this. If you're new to the podcast, you can write to us feedback@trinityforcepodcast.com. We will answer your question every week as we go live twice a week. We'll jump right in here. Scans. There's an S. Scan writes, I play a lot of AD carry because I always want to be good at it. And I think about average, if not just below. I've played 600 games in the role of the variety of marksman. I've had really good luck with some and terrible luck with others. Okay. Currently, I'm going well with Tristana, Vayne, and Kalista. My question is, I still can't seem to easily win my lane, and my CS has kind of gotten better, and my CS has kind of gotten better. My kills and objective focus is better than last season. Wondering, are there people naturally suited to play other roles? Yes.
Example. He's an example at the bottom, which I think is kind of important to bring up. But he doesn't play much Annie, Leona, Vlad, or Darius. And they have really good win rates and seem to dominate my lane easy peasy. Are these champions just easier to win with? Yes! The point I want to make here is he talks about Tristana, Vayne, and Kalista. Those are the champions he's playing in Marksman right now. But he can't easily win his lane. Well, that's probably because Tristana and Vayne are very poor marksman laners. You have to be really good at those champions in order to win your lane.
Because they're just to do.
Yeah, you gotta work harder at it. They aren't very good at trading. Most of the time they get out traded. Most of the time they have to rely on their support to carry them through the lane. Now Kalista has promised. Kalista's a very good laner.
Kalista can be a very good laner. We got to put it that way, because I would say like 90% of Kalistas, including myself, and to the guy who played Kalista quite a bit, is a bad Kalista, because there's a lot of Kalistas out there who don't understand how to use her Q properly, for one, and don't understand, because
her passive. Just how to jump around.
Well, yeah, but okay, so Q, if you kill a minion with Q, any stacks in that minion transfers to the next nearest minion or opponent or monster. So
whoever it lances through and hits.
Yeah, right. The next thing that it hits. So you want to dump a ton of lances into a back minion, Q to kill it, and have it hit the enemy AD carry and put the lances into them while jumping at them, and then hit Q again to slow them, and then you kill them, essentially. Like, that is Kalista 101. That's not even advanced Kalista plays. That is every Kalista should know how to trade doing that. But I don't ever see any Kalista do it, and it's very hard to do.
I do see some Kalistas do it. I don't think it's necessary to win the lane. You can stop the lane if you can do that well. But it's just kind of, I don't want to say icing on the cake. It's better than that. It's better than icing. It has more sustenance than icing. No,
it takes you from I can win like I said, you can dominate the lane. Dominate the lane.
But I don't.
As long as your opponent isn't clever to it, because if your opponent's clever to it, then they should never take that hit.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
They shouldn't be in that spot
to outplay as well. I'm seeing more Kalistas level Q first now.
Yeah.
Which we went back and forth on this a while. When he first came out, I thought you would level Q first because it gives you more laning presence. And then Runan's build came around, people were starting level E first, and now they're going back to Q. I'm not sure when that changed. But
when they started building BF sword and realizing how much poke and the AD ratio it has, I'm assuming.
So they're rushing the BF sword now instead of the Runans.
Everybody is rushing BF into Hurricane, I want to say. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's BF into Hurricane right now.
Yeah. Whatever, right? I mean, Q is the better laning ability. You got more poke, more damage, and I think I had more to say on that, but I have to bring up the wiki. I wanted to comment on mana, but I have to double check that. But anyway, the champion seat brings up down below Annie, Leona, Vlad, and Darius. With the exception of Vlad, those are all strong laners.
Yeah.
So yes, you probably do have good win rates with those without as much practice, because those are lane dominant champions, and it's just easier to win trades, easier to win the lane, and alternatively, Vayne Tristana are much harder to win the lane with.
Well, Scans, if you haven't already, go to our T-Force Network subreddit, because Horse Doctor actually just posted a video about AD carry. Well, it was more like how to last hit and everything, but
it's
really
not
does
AD carry specific.
But it does help focus on AD carries. It's a last hitting guide, and that's something that you should understand, because it kind of goes into depth about how you should be aware of where you're walking and how you're walking, and that goes more for AD carries than I think it does any role besides probably mid lane. And that's mid lane's important where you're walking. I think AD carry would be either first or second, depending on how you want to look at it. But you should always know where you're walking and why you're walking while you're last hitting, because you should know what your next move is. I've talked about it in the past. It's a chess match. You should know what your enemy is going to do based on your movements and where you're going to walk. It's like, if I go forward, is my enemy going to walk backwards? So if I last hit this minion to walk forward, is my enemy going to walk backwards away from his, or is he going to walk into me to try to get the minion that I that's next to me to last hit? Because they're both dying. There's a whole bunch of little things you got to think about while you're doing this, and that might not be something that as a player that you're aware of, or if you are aware of, you're not very good at. So maybe AD carry is the role for you because of that, one of those reasons.
Yeah, and it's a lot of it comes into play. Like, just listening to what Adam said there, it's true. But when you a new player and you're not really thinking about the well, how do I know what they're going to do? How do I anticipate it? The main thing to look at is the minion health bars, yours and theirs. Yeah. If you look at yours, it's Horse goes into it. So check out that article. It's called Dota Drill.
Definitely look into it.
It's really awesome. I didn't even know what direct input was, so check it out. It's really good. But looking at your own minions, which is what I've always done because I was a Dota player, looking at their health, they're going to have to go for the last hit. And the range. Are they going to use an ability to last hit it? Are they going to auto attack it? Chances are they just use an ability over here, so they have to come into auto attack, and then you can line up an attack and do the chess match, plan your next move and where you're going to go. So
the one example Horse Doctor uses, it's really simple but extremely effective, is when playing Varus. When one of his minions gets low, he charges up his Q, and when the enemy AD carry stops to last hit it, that's when he releases the Q and gets a free hit on them, because they're frozen for that momentary point in time where they're last hitting the minion. If you can get a Q off every time, not every time, because you got gated by the cooldown, but majority of the time they stop to last hit a minion, and you get that Q off, that's huge damage. The lane is won.
And they see the Q being charged, and they decide, okay, I don't want to take that trade damage. Okay, they just lost that CS.
That's right.
So
now you're building an advantage through CS.
Right.
And you gold advantage that way.
Yeah, you have to choose the lesser two evils.
Yeah, that's the whole point there is, what is it? 15 CS is equal to a kill, essentially. 15, 16 CS is a kill. So,
less than that.
No, it's 15. It's about 15 CS total. Roughly between minions, between
melee and casters.
Yeah, because everything's worth different gold now.
Right.
That's what changed. Is everything's worth different gold.
It's an approximate.
Yeah. So to answer your actual question, is we kind of gave you a bunch of things to think about when you're playing AD carry. But to answer your question, yes, I think players' personality goes into what role they should play. Because for example, I'm actually pretty good at top lane. As much as I want to play other roles, just my play style and the way I am, being cocky, having an ego, being on that island by itself, it lends myself to be top lane better than it does AD carry, because you have to be selfish or selfless depending on the day of the time when it comes to AD carry. Because sometimes you have to let your support die to pick up that double kill, and you're selfless at that point. You know what I mean? Or selfish. Excuse me. And you're selfless in some points where you have to deny yourself a kill because you need to save your support, because it's better to let the person go back and stay there and farm and let you both get XP. Like, there's little things like that. You have to figure out your play style, how you want to play. If you want to be alone in island top lane, if you want to be alone but play a mage, you're going to play mid. If you're going to if you want to play with somebody else, you're going to go bot. If you want to focus on the macro oriented of the game and you're not so much, if your mechanics suck, your last name mechanics suck, you might want to play jungle. Like, those are just like basic guidelines to pick out what role you're going to play in. Now, there's a lot of other things that factor into those roles, but yes, I think player attitude and behavior factors into what role they're playing.
I agree. I agree. I like to be able to control things myself. So I like jungle. I like to be able to impact the other lanes. I also like top lane because I like dueling champions. I like champions that can duel and 1v1 and all that kind of stuff. So I agree with that 100%. But I have a question for you. If Riot has a sale on Nami or Fizz, are they being selfish?
No.
So let's move on to Mad Zelly's question now. Matt Zelly, if you guys don't remember, he used to write a second question every single week, and then he stopped for a while because I think he stopped the game. But he's back now. He actually has another question I haven't added in this document. This dude is just writing questions like it's going out of style. I
picture him like Randy Quaid in Independence Day, as he's about to fly into the alien ship. Hello, boys, I'm back.
Mad Zelly says, "Hey gang, Mad Zelly here. I was thinking about what makes a good support and came to the conclusion that it's usually a combination of factors that include good poke, good sustain, ability to CC, potential to zone. All the best supports encompass at least two, if not three, even all four of these. So I started thinking about other champs that can utilize these aspects of gameplay and started wondering why they aren't played in the support role. Started thinking about some of the off-meta supports, like Annie, Brand, Vel'Koz, what can they do? But I wondered why champs such as LeBlanc, Swain, Lissandra, Ahri aren't used more often." And he actually goes in, especially Swain, because he seems like a good sub for Morgana. Well, I was thinking about this today. Swain is not a good sub for Morgana. I see where you're going with this, because you see, like, they have that root, right? They think that would be the main reason here. He's got some harass, he's got the root. But
That's
Morgana,
it.
yeah, Morgana brings a black shield and an AoE zone with her ultimate. Swain can't zone anybody when he's in his ultimate if he doesn't have items. And he can slow somebody with I think it's Torment. It's Q.
Laser crow.
Laser crow.
That's
That slows. That's pretty much all he brings. He brings a slow and a delayed stun. It's like putting new Veigar into support. Can it work? Sure. But they just need items to make it worth their while. Lissandra, same way. Lissandra's mana costs are actually fairly high outside. Because she has a passive to make up for it. But in the initial first 6 levels, Lissandra's mana costs are really high, and she has to put herself into a very dangerous position to CC anybody.
The cast range on her ultimate is really low. She pretty much has to be right next to her target to do that, which means if you're in the middle of a team fight as a support Lissandra ulting somebody, you got the ult off, and then you're dead.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I guess that's all she'd be good for anyways, is a W and an ult, which means she's not a very good support. You get one W, one ult, and you're dead.
Something I noticed looking at these champs you're picking as well. You say LeBlanc, probably because of the tether stun, but it's first target hit, so they can hide behind minions for it.
But it's a target hit
Ahri,
that takes
charm. It's a target hit exactly. It takes,
well, no, it's a like LeBlanc. It's a target hit, but it takes time to root. It doesn't root.
Well, so does Karma's, but Karma's you can point and click it.
Well, yeah, you can point and click and just pick the person, right?
So, it's those things make it a little bit, you got minions to deal with in the laning phase and things like that. So maybe that plays into part why they're not used as much. But I think we touched on the mana costs are probably one of the biggest parts of that, because you got to use that CC and right. Utility, and if you can only do it a couple times,
And his list of what makes a good support here. I mean, Ahri and LeBlanc bring the ability to CC, technically. They don't really bring the potential to zone, though. Not unless you snowball that lane.
Yeah.
So all they really have is the CC.
LeBlanc has
kill
kill
isn't even that
pressure.
great either without items.
Like, I've seen LeBlanc support have kill pressure between, 6 and 7, or maybe 5 and 7. It's really, her power spike is 6. If you get 6 before the enemy, you have kill pressure, usually.
Yeah, LeBlanc support, we did see for a while. It was a pretty cheesy strategy, but, I mean, it was effective for a time.
But that's all it's effective for, though. You have to snowball your lane with it. It's kind of like a kill lane. You have to snowball the lane to make it work.
Yeah, LeBlanc would get the kills, pretty much.
Yeah, actually, Panda brings up it's reliability of spells. When I look at a support, I think about there's more than one factor. Mine is how much CC are they bringing, how reliable is the CC, and what other utility do they bring in the form of either CC or magic or mitigation. Mitigation is the word I'm looking for. Between shields, like Black Shield, or damage reduction shields, or movement speed boosts, or whatever it is. Buffs.
Boofs?
So when you're
Buffs,
looking at
oops.
like these champions that brand, like those champions like LeBlanc and Brand and Vel'Koz, they win the lane through suppression. based on that they're forcing the enemy team to stay behind the minion wave and not get levels and not give CS because they do so much base damage early, and they have they just do so much damage early that they're forcing the enemy to stay away, and they have to snowball that lead to make themselves worthwhile, because as if it rolls into mid and late game and you haven't picked up at least a single kill in lane, you have to try harder to make your spells count. Essentially, you have to put yourself in more precarious positions to make your spells worthwhile. And
you won't really be a support late game with those picks. You transition kind of into another AP carry at that point. What do you have, a Sightstone?
Team comp is what you're doing.
Yeah, because it's Vel'Koz, Brand, Annie, Swain, all these that you're picking. If you just build the traditional support builds, you're going to be pretty much useless late game.
Yeah.
Okay, you can really use your Locket of the Iron Solari. That's it. You know?
Yeah, you don't really have a major source of income either as you get into the mid and late game, unless your team is constantly ganking and pushing down objectives. And then you're going to win pretty shortly anyways.
But if you do snowball, you're going for a quick win, and then you do have that extra damage for the team fights. So it's good as long as the rest of your team is good and they don't need your peel necessarily. So like Adam was saying, it's one of those all or nothing. You know, you got to win early.
Yeah,
you really got to win.
When you start looking at these, I like where you're going. I like that you're thinking outside of the box, and I'm not trying to like shoot your ideas down and say you're completely wrong, because you're right. These can work, but to remember that they're working under conditions. A lot of supports work under conditions. The conditions just come at different points in the game. Some are dependent on making it through levels 1 to 3. Some are dependent on. Some do really well at levels 2 to 6, and then they kind of have a little mid game, and they do even better later in the game. But the good supports are good throughout the entirety of the game. They're good from level 1 to 18. Thresh, Leona, Alistar, Janna. Yeah, everybody. We'll keep going. I can pretty much name all. Yeah, Taric. Everybody, they're good from 1 to 6 because they bring some form of utility or some form of CC. Brahma's really good because it's passive. That's why they're supports, because they're good throughout the entirety of the game with the utility they bring. Vel'Koz.
Their utility scales.
Yeah,
basically.
There it is. That's exactly what I was going for. That's what I was trying to
And Black Shield is always good. Janna Ultimate's always good. Leona can always initiate. Blitzcrank can always get a pick.
So, yeah, that's all it is. I like where you're going. Consider it that way. What can my person do from level 1 to level 18? Where are my lulls? Where are my power spikes? What am I putting on my team by picking that up? If you can start answering those questions, you can start picking off-meta supports that work really well for you. Hell, I've seen a Nivea supports work really well because she has a stun, a slow, and a wall. But that doesn't mean she's good. No, it just means you have to be really good at the champion to make it work.
And when you're
it works better when you have a dual partner or you're in a ranked 5s team and there's a plan for it. Obviously, taken into solo queue, you might get distrusted by your lane partner. Maybe they won't think to go in when you want to go in, or to maximize on the poke you're doing. Maybe they're just going to sit there and farm, and you're poking them out, but it doesn't matter because your AD carry doesn't want to go in for the kill. So consider
they may
that
not know what your strengths are or how to play with you,
right, or what your purpose is. So just be careful in solo queue. And thanks for coming back, Madzilli. Keep writing in. We always enjoy your questions.
Let's answer this last question by Nathaniel. I made bot in mid lane and usually ADC more than support. I have been playing a ton of Ashe lately. Hold on. The beer burps, the carbonation burps you ever get once in a while. That's it's coming up.
Every time.
I really try to watch my positioning with her due to her lack of escape and mobility. I feel when in solo queue, a lot of people in team fights will chase down the lowest person instead of staying together. Beginning of the season, I asked for peel, but that will only get you so far. Basically, I want to know if you can give any tips that I use outside of positioning tips or anything I can do to keep myself alive to help the team. I don't like to rely on the others because I can't control what they do, and I feel it works better for me to rely on myself, and if others do help, it's a plus. Thanks, keep up the great work. Nathaniel. I know, Punch, we've harped on positioning and harped on it. You've talked about it for the past 3 or 4 episodes. Unless you got something magical you're going to pull out of your ass here, I don't know what you're going to say.
Oh, we can focus on Ashe here, and the obvious thing to look at is her ultimate. And if you want to help the team, you always have that. If we're ignoring positioning and you want to find a way to help the team, you've got your ultimate. You can use that to initiate. You've always got that available. You can use that to pick. If you're good at aiming your ultimate, and as you say, these fights kind of spread out or maybe it starts as a skirmish and then more people come over time. Well, if you can get a good ultimate off at the start of that and guarantee a pick, then you've already given your team the lead. I mean, you've already won the skirmish, and either the enemy team has to back off if they have to fight a 4v5. I mean, I played a game last night, and this isn't necessarily the greatest example, but I could tell it's going to be a bad game at the start during pick phase because their first two picks were Rengar and Jarvan. I picked Ashe anyways because fuck it.
Yeah, all right.
Rengar got first blood, and then our top laner teleported back into the lane and died immediately afterwards, so Rengar was 2-0. At the end of the game, I had 15 deaths. But damn it, I found a way to stay relevant. Just purely through ultimates. I mean, if I could get that ultimate off before I died, at least I did something, right?
Yeah. From what I've seen playing with Bao Bao, who is a Rengar main, this dude is like one of the sickest Rengars I've ever seen. He's going to delete you. If you're playing AD carry, he's playing Rengar, you are gone. Within a rotation, you will not be able to do anything. Like a good Rengar, you're
one
just
time
done.
I died in 0.16 seconds. It was great. Yeah.
I've been playing AD carry recently. I don't know why I wanted to get Graves Mastery, but suddenly I did, and I'm like this close to it. But yeah, Rengar, you're gone. Speaking to it, Nathaniel, I think a big thing that you should probably work on, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, and if I'm wrong, I don't know. We'll never know unless he writes in and tells us, but I think your overwalking sucks. I don't think you're probably very good at it. I don't think you understand attack speed animation very well. And this isn't me calling you out to say you're bad or anything. This is me calling you out to say I think that might be where you need to look at it. And the reason I bring this up is because I have played a couple Arams over the past couple days, and people get 80 carries and they're not normally used to playing them, and they don't know how to orb walk. I watched a Twitch who would get chased down, and he just ran. He just kept walking and walking and walking, and every time he could have turned an attack canceled, you know what I mean, and gotten the auto attacks off, and probably gotten hit a couple times, but at least could have got some more off. And I think that comes to players who are just not comfortable enough with attack speed or comfortable enough. Just the fact that you tell me that your positioning is not allowing you to stay alive in team fights makes me think that you stand in a place and you don't know how to move around the team fight in we've talked about like a U pattern before. It's pretty much how you move around a team fight. Yeah, I think you should go in the custom game and work on.
You don't want to back off for forever because as you point out in your question here, you get too far away from your team, the fight becomes too spread out. If you isolate yourself running away from somebody, running away from your support or somebody that can peel for you, then you're just hurting yourself really. Mm-hmm. I think another thing you can do here, not specific to Ashe, but just AD carry in general, is warding. We love talking about warding. I love upgrading the yellow trinket just because I like getting more wards out. I like warding my flanks because it makes it harder for enemies to approach me. If I can see where they're at, then I have more time to react to them trying to jump on top of me. Mm-hmm. It just makes positioning that much easier.
If you're playing against a Rengar, you know what you should do? Instead of buying blue, you should buy red trinket. And you should upgrade it. And you should pay attention to the top of your head when that little thing comes up, because you can...
By the time you use it...
No, I'm not... It's not 100%.
Unless you have amazing reaction time.
If you're playing against a Rengar, you should always be aware of that little question mark. Now, you're not going to get it 100% of the time, you're right. But you can upgrade your trinket, and you can use it, and you could potentially see the Rengar coming.
I would recommend trying the upgraded pink ward yellow trinket.
That works too.
For Rengar too. I mean, if you're in a position, if you're sieging, you're in an area of the map where you're about to fight the enemy, you can just throw your pink ward even before the exclamation mark goes over your head, and you'll be able to see Rengar approach.
I actually make Bisnera. I don't ever build Zonias, but I actually think it's hilarious to build like as a third item. I have done it.
Build Zonias.
I have built Zonias as like a third item against Rengar and just pop it.
I should have. I should have last night.
Yeah, if you're dying that much, what do you have to lose, Punch? You're not doing damage. You might as well just build it and make him go, huh! Well, what the fuck?
Actually, I was talking to my buddy Urtai during the game. I was like, you know what? There's no item I can get that can keep me alive during this. I'm just going to build more damage. So,
and he was like, yeah, that
built straight damage. Didn't build a defensive item. It was great.
Well, what does Ashe's arrow? What does Ashe's arrow have as a modifier? AP?
It's AP.
Zonia's. There you go. You get your arrow off. You're doing more damage,
yes,
and you
with enough AP, you can one-shot somebody with Ashe's arrow. Don't even need the stun. They're just dead immediately.
I tried it. It's really hard. It's really hard to build enough AP. And yeah, I think that's it for this week. I think we've answered questions. We've gone through patch 5.11. I don't know what we're going to talk about on Wednesday quite yet, but that should be That should be an episode. What you guys are going to talk about? I say we. It's you.
We're just going to be real excited about the following day.
You probably, yeah.
The big announcement.
You'll probably talk PvE cycle. Probably talk. I think what did I have? I had a discussion point in here. If Daze is on the podcast, you guys should talk about transitioning from not carry. What was it? Transitioning from peel to engage
As a support.
a support. I think that's a very good topic of conversation.
How your role evolves during the course of a game.
Right. And it's very hard. I've even had it with Alistar. I'm like, I should engage all game. And then I realized, like, after one team fight, that the team fight, if we would have won it, probably would have won us the game. That I should have protected Punchinello and not engaged.
It's not just for support either.
I'm guilty of
It's
that
just, it's happened to me when I've played. I mean, we'll get into this. I guess we'll get into this later. But it's happened to me when I played Ken in top lane, where I've had a tradition from diving the enemy backline just to countering. What's the word I'm looking for?
Zone.
Counter initiation.
Yeah, counter initiate.
Counter engage. Yeah. The stand on my
Well,
back.
counter engage
and
would be
ult in
if
when
you're-
they jump on us.
Oh, yeah. All right. I think that's good, guys. Thank you guys for watching the Trinity Force podcast. I hope you all enjoy the episodes. If you do, please check us out at patreon.com/TForce Network. That is it for this episode. We're going to go off and do our little merry stuff. So, guys, we will see you on Wednesday. Peace.
Later, guys.